Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining today's session with Entyr as a part of NWR's Vantage Point conference. Before we hear from David Wheely, the CEO of Entyr, a couple of quick reminders. Today's format is designed to be interactive. We'll start with a quick 5 to 10 minute overview of the company, followed by a Q&A session. And we encourage the audience to submit anonymous questions via the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We will endeavour to have things wrapped up in today's presentation by about 12:25. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to David Wheely, CEO of Entyr. Thanks, David.
Thank you very much, Sam, and welcome to everybody. I'll just kick off on this page. So Entyr is an Australian company focused on solving the world's waste tyre issue. We have a unique thermal desorption technology that converts waste tyres into carbon fuel and recovers the steel with a low emissions and almost no waste. Waste tyres are an enormous unsolved problem globally. You have more than 1 billion tyres wasted annually, and 90% of those tyres find their way to either stockpiles, buried, or are being burnt. In Australia, we have 56 million tyres annually, and approximately 80% of those tyres are either buried or exported to be burnt. Currently, there is no large-scale solution for the waste tyre problem, only niche solutions such as crumbing to make mats and other rubber products. Entyr has a unique thermal desorption process. Now, we're not the first people in the world to use heat to break down a tyre. A process called pyrolysis has been around for 50 or so years, but traditional pyrolysis process has a number of issues that have prevented it from becoming the mainstream solution for tyres. Our patented thermal desorption process is very unique. It is low energy because it is a continuous feed, relative low temperature process. The low energy comes from the fact that the thermal reactors are heated and then remain hot rather than a heating cooling process. We have high quality products because of the low temperature. So we bake the tyre rather than incinerating the tyre, which means that our products are high in quality. We have very low emissions as a result of our low temperature process, and almost no waste of the tyre at the end of the process. We have relatively low capital costs compared to pyrolysis plants. And we are the only company currently with an environmental licence to thermally process tyres in Australia. Our process model is we collect tyres and are paid approximately $500 per tonne as a gate rate. The gate rate for tyres is largely set by the disposal method for tyres. If you're a tyre retailer, you can't just take tyres to the landfill. The market for waste tyres, as I said, is highly regulated. So there's 3 methods for disposal of a tyre in terms of mainstream, excluding ourselves. That is sending it to landfill, exporting, or processing for crumbing or other minor product manufacturing. The process, all 3 processes require shredding of the tyre. So whole tyres cannot be exported and whole tyres cannot be put into landfill. And by far and away, the majority of tyres, some 80% is either landfilled or exported. Our process, so we shred the tyre as well. We remove the steel and then we feed the shredded tyre into our thermal process. The thermal process creates 2 things. It creates gas and carbon. The gas condenses and becomes a fuel oil. A very small proportion of the gas doesn't condense and can be reused for energy to create electricity to heat our thermal energy, our thermal reactors. However, we're not doing that at the moment and we are flaring off the waste gas. By far and away, the majority of the gas, though, converts to fuel oil. So our products, recovered carbon black and fuel, are sold currently into the asphalt industry. We get approximately $200 per tonne for the carbon and $800 to $900 per tonne for the fuel oil. And we receive about $100 per tonne for the steel, which is just sold into the scrap steel market. For us, we're pioneers with our process, and that meant being pioneers with our products that we make because they're unique. The asphalt industry is where we're selling our products. The fuel is a diesel replacement in the burner application that heats the asphalt, and the carbon is a replacement for hydrated lime as a mineral filler and binder aid. There are emerging markets, other markets in the world for recovered carbon black specifically, and that is around the replacement of virgin carbon black with recovered carbon black. And although that's not our focus at the moment, that is a significant opportunity in the future. So why are the asphalt industry interested in our products and why they are taking our products? Three key reasons: 24% reduction in embedded CO2 in the pavement that they produce, so a significant carbon emissions reduction. Efficiency from use of our products. The fuel is cheaper and more efficient than diesel, and the asphalt, when using the carbon, has a raft of efficiencies around laying. And the third is that it provides a longer life product for roads, increases the durability of the road. It also has safety benefits such as a higher skid resistance and retention of colour. Our strategy as a company, we're focused at the moment on finishing our Stapleton facility. We have run the facility at half of our desired pace, which is around 10,000 tonne per annum annualised rate. We needed to finish the infrastructure on site to take it to full capability or full capacity, which is 20,000 tonnes per annum. 20,000 tonnes is approximately 2 million tyres, and 20,000 tonnes in Queensland is approximately 1/5 of the Queensland waste tyre market. We're currently in the construction mode where we are building the last portions of infrastructure around our thermal units right now. Over the next 6 months, we are working with our partner, Australian Road and Research Board, to normalise the use of the carbon and the fuel in the asphalt industry. We currently have 3 contracts in Southeast Queensland and looking to expand that a little further, although the 3 contracts will go close to full capacity at 20,000 tonnes. Our next step from there is our second site. We are looking at that being in either Victoria or Queensland, currently in consultation with the Queensland government on funding to finish the Stapleton site. And although we've raised some money recently that we're using for that, we're still in deep conversation with the Queensland government for funding. And part of that conversation is around whether we do a second facility in Queensland. At the same time, we've commenced dialogue in Victoria with the Victorian government and have started the process for normalising the use of the product in Victoria and have announcements coming soon around some significant road trials. Further expansion in Australia, we're looking at having 4 additional plants to our existing plant within 3 years, and we believe that international expansion is a significant possibility for us. We have currently raised $7.5 million, which we're using for the completion of the Stapleton plant. We believe that we will be able to secure funding where we don't need equity for our second facility through funding from either the Victorian government or the Queensland government, and also debt funding for a portion of our expansion. At this stage, our expansion in Australia, we believe, is best suited as an owner-operator model, as each facility will cost around 30 million, and we expect an EBITDA of between 9 and 11 million from each facility, which we believe is a very healthy return. However, expansion internationally may be best suited in a licensing model, but we have not explored that at this stage. All right, thanks, Sam.
Great, thanks very much, David. I think you mentioned there's been a lot of hope around the Stapleton site in terms of Queensland government funding. Can you just touch on the sort of direction of the discussion there? You mentioned, the potential for a second site. Can you just try and give the audience a bit more detail, please?
Yeah, we've been working in conjunction with the Deputy Premier and the department, his department in Queensland, for $5.7 million grant, which would complete the Stapleton site and would also place some great things like cogeneration power plants, solar panels, and a whole raft of other things that would complete our circular story. The conversation is ongoing, and we don't have a decision either way from them. At the moment, we're in a process with the department. That's the best I can say. Victorian government, we have commenced conversation with them, and it's very positive so far. They are very keen to have a significant solution to their waste tire problem in Victoria, and are looking for an investment if we were at project ready status, which we're not quite, but we will be halfway through the second half of this calendar year.
Okay, so and is it right to assume that Victoria is the sort of front runner for a logical second site? And then what's the sort of level of engagement beyond both Queensland and Victoria in terms of other key government?
I've found that the Victorian government is much more keen on the funding angle. The Queensland government is, but appears to be more bureaucratic with the process, or timeline is longer. So our expansion in terms of the place will depend on the funding, because we are not looking to raise equity for the second site.
Okay, great, thank you. And you touched on tyre gate rates. Are we still seeing sort of upward pressure on tyre gate fees?
Yeah, we are. So the gate fees are really controlled by the landfill or the alternate export. Landfill rates in Queensland are due to go up at 1st of July. So there'll be an increase to use that disposal method. And likewise, the cost to export is continuing to increase. And the countries where the tyres are being exported to are charging more for the waste to be received, which is putting up the pressure on prices.
Okay, great, thank you. And you mentioned 3 additional sites in the next 3 years. How should we think about the sort of longer term potential growth of the business?
Yeah, really keen to have that 5 sites in Australia, capital city focused. At this stage, very heavily focused around logistics for our offtake market, being the asphalt industry. We think that we're looking at around 130,000 tonnes per annum with the 5 facilities, and a business making in excess of 35 million EBITDA per annum.
Okay, great, thank you. Could you please provide some more information on the fuel oil? Specifically, is it stable and how is it stored and transported? Are many current diesel burners able to use this fuel without requiring CapEx upgrades?
Okay, so the fuel itself is stable. It looks and behaves like diesel. It does have a lower flash point than diesel, so we have to handle it based on its flash point. But that is not that much different to diesel. It's more akin to unleaded fuel. In terms of the use in burner application, we've chosen the asphalt industry, and part of that process we've secured the okay from the OEM burner manufacturers, specifically in the asphalt industry. So that's really the only place that we've looked for approval of the burners. It doesn't require a different burner. It does require some different plumbing because of the different flash point. And the asphalt companies that we sell to have chosen to install a second tank specifically to handle this fuel. Although that's not necessary, that gives them the ability through our off and on process as we finish our plant to continue to use the diesel, which is advantageous, but they're very keen to take as much fuel as we can produce. And the cost to them is around $200,000, and that's for a tank and the plumbing. And the asphalt industry uses an enormous amount of fuel, about 8 to 10 litres of diesel per tonne of asphalt produced. So selling it at around 80 cents a litre instead of $1.40 plus that they pay gives them a significant payback, a significantly quick payback.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Is there any movement around legislation on disposal of waste tyres?
Only that it's highly regulated and that they are putting up the levies in every state. It's a category 2 waste, which means that you can't just dispose of it at any landfill. It's selected landfills where licenses are highly sought after and very tightly controlled. For example, in Southeast Queensland, I think there's 2 category 2 licensed landfills out of 13 landfills. So it's quite challenging. So the price is going up with the levy going up. In addition to that, the federal government is currently looking at putting an export levy on waste. So any waste that they agree still has to be exported because there's no solution in Australia will be subject to a levy if they can pass that through government. So there's a little bit of movement there, which is favourable for us.
Okay, great. And then just shifting gears to the plant, what's the typical power consumption of these plants, and how do you think about the ongoing OPEX requirements of the machinery? You know, how demanding is the process on the equipment, and what does that mean for sort of OPEX and replacement?
Yeah, okay. So the plant is powered by electricity, which is unique to our thermal process. Normally, gas is the thermal process used. By using electricity, we can control our temperatures, and that means it's far more efficient. So we have a slow, gradual ramp up, and then we hold the temperature. And by doing the holding, it's like an oven at home. You know, getting to 180 to cook your cake or whatever uses energy, but holding it at 180, it doesn't use a lot of energy. So that's our process. And the electricity bill currently, if we were running at 20,000 tonnes per annum, would be about 14% of our operating costs, our total operating costs. And so it's significant, but not overly significant. And with the Queensland government grant, we will install a cogeneration power plant, which will halve our energy use on site, and we'll augment that with some solar panels. But yeah, they're cosmetic really in terms of the use on the site.
Okay, great, thank you. With your recent announcement focusing on completing the site build and reducing cost, will the gate fee revenue allow you to hit break even sooner than anticipated?
Yes, so we've locked in our customers, so we're continuing to take tyres and processing tyres, and we're using one of the alternate disposal methods in between the periods when we're not running our thermal units while we're doing construction. And the shredder we installed means we have very low costs to shred, and means that our ability to bring in that revenue will fund most of the day-to-day costs of the plant whilst we're doing the construction. So we'll actually see significant improvements in our bottom line during this phase of our process from where we've been over the last 6 to 12 months.
Okay, great, thank you. The company had a variety of infrastructure installed over the last 6 months, which included a new shredder. Can you please explain some of the benefits of the new shredder and how the plant performed despite the installation of the shredder being delayed?
Yeah, so the delay in the shredder was due to contractors and importing the material and so on. Even though it was delayed, we still were able to run the plant at near our commercial pace, or our break-even pace of 900. We ran for a sustained period in the mid to high 800 tonnes annualised monthly rate. So bringing the shredder online would have improved that. However, we've opted to move as quickly as we can on the equipment, which has meant that the thermal units shut down at the moment while we build some equipment around them. However, the installation of the shredder has meant that we've now lowered our shredding costs, and we can continue to receive tyres and increase our revenue during that period over the next few months.
Okay, great. And I think just a final question in the interest of time here. You highlighted international expansion. Are you seeing any interest from your tech or in your tech rather from offshore players for potential partnerships, or would you look to do this in isolation as an owner-operator?
Yeah, okay. So we believe our best option to create shareholder value is to build this in Australia and build a business that has global scale and relevance. Having said that, our recent success with our processing has really drawn international acknowledgement. So we have quite a number of discussions with international players over a whole raft of things, from offtake agreements to partnering. The carbon black, a virgin carbon black market will be replaced somewhat with a recovered carbon black market, and companies that use virgin carbon black are very interested in shoring up their supply. So you've got those companies, and you've got trading companies that currently trade the virgin black that are very interested in companies like ours. We believe we're at the forefront of this. There is a handful of companies in Europe that are doing something similar, but on what's been released, we're at least as far advanced as they are, if not better.
Okay, great. That's been a really helpful overview, and I think that's probably all time we've got for questions today. If there are any follow-up questions, or you'd like to connect with David or the management team, please reach out. David, maybe I could just pass it back to you for any closing comments.
Thank you very much, Sam. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks very much. That ends the session with Entyr. Thanks for joining. Goodbye.